How's it going? Welcome back, my wonderful wise ones, to another great video today. And it feels like we are in a little bit of a nostalgia time capsule today because we're taking a look at yet another Gears of War remaster. And it's kind of funny because I don't think this game truly needs to exist, in all honesty. I think it's a little bit of a cash grab, a way for Microsoft to make some of their money back, now finally realizing that basically they have lost the long console war. And I think that whole argument was stupid because both PlayStation and Xbox had amazing exclusive games, and both systems do something different. And I've always had an Xbox, I've always had a PlayStation.
Kick this shit. First things first, my body's curvier than Rainbow Road. You look like an old refrigerator covered in mold. You ugly, and my controller's got that haptic feedback. You'll feel it in your knuckles when I smash your kneecaps, punk. I got Spider-Man and God of War. You got a stupid ass gorilla, bro. Your lineup's a bore. And Game Pass, what the fuck kind of trash is that? A bunch of old 360 games that all suck ass.
It's kind of sad that it's over, though, to be honest, because it was such a dumb, pointless, fun conversation to have. Like, which was better back in the day, the Xbox 360 or the PlayStation 3 or the PlayStation 4 versus the new Xbox One and stuff like that. But it's all over at this point. Microsoft have finally bowed down, and they are now going the subscription service route. And nothing says that more than having one of the main names of Xbox, Gears of War, going multi-platform, going to the PlayStation. You know, it's nice because now everyone has a chance to play this game together with crossplay and all that stuff, but at the same time it just feels like a little bit of that history has finally died, and it's kind of sad, even though it's a good thing actually. So welcome back, my wonderful wise ones, because today we're going to be taking a look at Gears of War Reloaded Ultimate Fisted Up Your Arsenal Edition. So this is a reimagined remaster remake of the remastered original edition that was never remastered or remade before. And that's what makes this game so special. So Gears of War Reloaded is the edition that is now coming out on the PlayStation, on PS5 and PS5 Pro, and of course all platforms. And I'm going to talk about, the main changes straight off the bat and then get deeper into this Gears of War Reloaded review. But basically what you need to know is this is fundamentally exactly the same game. We've all played it, at least most of us have played it. So I won't go into spoiler territory, but I will just talk about the game, how it stands in 2025, give you a Gears of War 2025 review. But this is mainly to find out, is Gears of War Reloaded worth it, okay? And give you a Gears of War Reloaded review. But basically, if you haven't played this game and you've only played the original, then this is going to be, quite a jump up, I would say, fidelity-wise, and, just make you realize just how great this original game truly was. But if you played the Gears of War Ultimate Edition, this is pretty much exactly the same game, which is very disappointing. So I just want to get that straight. I just want to say that straight away because a lot of people might be thinking this is, a big remake, kind of like a remaster remake of Oblivion. Which was fundamentally the same game, but it had some tweaks, it had a few gameplay changes to make it feel fresh. No, this is exactly the same thing. Animations haven't changed, the gameplay systems haven't changed. This is fundamentally a very old game, just being resold to you because money. Now, I don't want to be a grumpy old boomer, shaking my fist at the clouds, because remakes and remasters do have a place in the gaming, landscape, when they're done well, when it actually warrants a proper remaster slash remake. I think the Oblivion one is actually a good example, except the performance is terrible. I think, some games truly do deserve a remaster, but we have seen this disgusting recent development, mostly from Sony, remaking or remastering games like The Last of Us and some other Sony games like Horizon and stuff like that honestly have no
integrity. Do you want some fucking integrity?
And honestly, these games have no basis to warrant a remake or a remaster because they're literally a few years old and they've already been remastered. That's the disgusting thing is if a video, I'm losing my mind, if a game has already been remastered before on a different console and then they remaster the remaster to make it a new remaster, not a remake, then that's when I think it gets fucking stupid. And let's be honest, it's a way for these companies to make money and to be lazy, so they don't actually have to create something original. They can just shill out the same product over and over again, just like Todd Howard did with Skyrim. So, it's just sad that we have to rely on classics instead of new IPs being created because, sadly, creativity has kind of lacked for a long time now, the last 10 years or 5 years, for the AAA space in gaming. AA still has a lot of creative stuff, but I just don't like this standard trope. So that's my little rant about the remake and the whole Gears of War Reloaded situation, because I'm not anti remakes or remasters. I don't think they're nice. I don't think that they're, creative, or it isn't what gaming should be about, where it should be about, new ideas and honoring an older game, making it more accessible, or doing a full remake. A lot of them are cash grabs, but some of them are amazing, like Demon Souls, etc., that do something different so you can have both games. A lot of them are lazy remasters. So I just wanted to give you my 2 cents on it. Sorry for the little rant. But say, for example, you never did touch Gears of War. You never played the masterpiece that is Halo, for example. Then this is a good time, because this is the best way that you can play this game. So let's just get into all of that, shall we? So Gears of War Reloaded is, like I said, exactly the same game as Ultimate. It just has a few new bells and whistles added onto it. So basically now it can do 4K. It is super, super large. And to me, that's not a good thing. An old game like this has no need to be this large. So that's quite annoying. But you can play it because it's not going to last a long time. It's an old game at this point. So then you can, save the disk space or whatever. But it is large because of the new textures, and they're not exactly new textures, they're more upscaled. Some of them are new, but they are doing 4K textures, 4K resolution, 60 FPS, a brand new kind of overhauled lighting system to a degree, but it's not full on, actual ray traced lighting or anything that I would think would be a lot better. It does also have better reflections, and it just looks a lot more shiny. I wouldn't say it looks like a brand new game, but it does certainly look a lot better compared to the previous editions. Reflections and all that kind of stuff are better, but you can still tell that this is an old game at the end of the day. But it's just nice that everyone can finally play this masterpiece. It's not just for the Xbox crowd anymore. And the big win about Gears of War Reloaded is the fact that the multiplayer scene is going to be back. It's actually got the full split screen intact, so it just harkens back to a simpler time, a better time of gaming, back when you would play, couch co-op with the boys on Halo and Gears of War and have yourselves a good time. And the multiplayer scene, like I said, is going to be open once again to, recapture that fun nostalgia time that we all had playing Gears of War. And if you haven't, then this is the first time you can experience that. So that is pretty cool. That's where the really the worth comes in, I would say, if you are looking to buy this full price. And again, I hope I didn't ruffle any feathers, but I've always thought that the console war mentality was always very stupid, very tribal, and that is something I'm 100% against on this channel when it comes to anything. We should all have open minds, open perspectives. It's the same thing with everything now. Gaming, politics, it's all become very tribalized. So it's nice to finally have that barrier broken down and we can actually just enjoy good games for being good games. That was my point. So now let's get into the positives and negatives of Gears of War Reloaded. And if you do enjoy this video, consider giving it a like. That would be greatly appreciated, as I put everything that I am into creating content for you guys and trying to get this channel to full-time territory. And with your support, we can get closer. And again, this is a community. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it because I love sharing different ideas with you guys, and seeing the Wise One community grow is just the best thing ever. So it would be a great honor to have you subscribe, become a Wise One today if you enjoy a deeper look at video games, deeper analysis, early access reviews, and philosophical content. I blend them both together on this channel to give you something new. And being a Wise One is all about breaking down the tribal barrier, having an open perspective, and looking at things objectively as much as possible. So if that sounds interesting and good to you, subscribe and be a Wise One. So I'm now going to list off the positives and negatives for the Gears of War Reloaded edition, and that is going to be the Gears of War Reloaded review segment. Then I'm going to get into Gears of War 2025 review and discuss, what this game actually is for newcomers without spoiling anything, and if it's actually worth playing again in 2025 for people who are new to the series, okay? So the first positive is something I already kind of mainly highlighted. That is the big point for me with this game. The Reloaded Edition is simply because the multiplayer is back, and you can actually play the split screen. They didn't try and do some dirty tactics where it's trying to make you buy as many copies as possible, so you can actually play split screen with this, and multiplayer is fully activated across all platforms. The next thing is an actual negative, and I think a lot of people won't really care about this unless if you did play the original back in the day. But basically, the art style is kind of being a little bit washed over in some places. Now, Gears of War is a very grim, kind of grim, dark universe. I wouldn't say it's as gritty as something like Warhammer or something like that, but it does have a similar aesthetic, and the older games really captured that grim nature, of war, and they even trained, back in the day, like this was one of the first tactical shooters that they actually trained soldiers on in their free time. Obviously not seriously, but it did actually have gritty tactical gameplay, and the world reflected that, the levels reflected that, and so did the art style. Also, I really loved some of the effects the older games had, like weather, just rolling in, and windstorms, more particle effects and stuff like that. The Ultimate Edition and this edition, sadly Reloaded Edition, have kind of just forgotten that. They've forgotten some of the ambience in favor of higher fidelity, and to me that is a crying shame, because that's what a lot of modern day gaming does now. It doesn't care so much about details, more about photorealism, and yeah, I think it kind of sucks. The next positive of this Gears of War Reloaded review, and that is a big one, I've got to be honest, because it does make it feel a little bit more next gen, you could say, is basically there is no loading at all. From start to finish with the campaign, there is absolutely no loading screens, which is pretty cool. Of course, you get the cutscenes, but it's all completely fluid. Obviously, back in the day, and Bethesda, even today, there has to be a lot of loading in between, different cells, okay? But in this one, they've actually managed to kind of streamline the process, so there isn't going to be that much loading at all, actually, in the campaign, which is pretty nice, and it just makes it feel like a, tight experience. I would say it's very tight. Now, the next one is a bit of a positive slash negative, you could say, because obviously this is not a full remake. This is not even a proper remaster to some degree. This is more of a way to ship it to everyone, and have a few new technical things. Honestly, I think they should have just called this the Ultimate Edition. I think calling it a brand new edition, the Reloaded Edition, is kind of cheeky, because yeah, it does have some new quality of life improvements, but honestly this is still pretty much the Ultimate Edition with a few added stuff. But honestly, the biggest problem for me is they could have finally given this the treatment that it deserves. They always talk about Xbox, okay, Microsoft. They always say that this is one of the key OG games, like Halo. It's up there with Master Chief for Xbox, a masterpiece, one that, changed third-person cover-based shooters forever. But at the same time, and they're giving it to a brand new audience. So this would be the best time, honestly. It's such a missed opportunity to actually remake the game, to actually add better animations, better cover mechanics, better third-person gunplay, to actually change some of the gameplay, not actually change the whole game, because, like I said, it's already a masterpiece. They don't need to change the story, they don't need to do anything like that, but they could finally update it, just like they did with Oblivion. But no, this is a very lazy in my eyes, remaster. And I don't mean it's going to be a bad game, I just think it's missed opportunity. So gameplay wise, it still feels very dated, and you have to know that going in. So now, to round off this Gears of War Reloaded review segment, I'm simply going to give it a few more positives because it does deserve praise here and there. I'm not saying it's a bad game whatsoever, I just think it's kind of cheeky. So don't get me wrong, I don't hate Gears of War, I do love the game. And I don't think this edition is broken or bad, but I think it's a very missed opportunity is all I'm saying. But you know, if it's your first time, this is clearly the best way to play it. I'm not denying that. So the last two things are positives, okay, and that is simply that the AI is slightly improved over the last game, at least, you know, better at following your commands. At least it seems better, at least the AI seems slightly better with your friendly AI companions compared to previously where they kind of just do their own thing. This time around they do seem a little bit smarter. I wouldn't say that the AI has changed that much for the enemies as far as I can see from the, you know, hands-on early access stuff, but you know, that was mostly multiplayer, so I do think AI overall has been improved. And the big positive for this one as well is it includes all of the DLC, and honestly you would expect it to at this point since it's a very old game. So overall I do think it's a good package for people who have never played the game. Now, to answer the question, is Gears of War Reloaded worth it? Say for example you played the Ultimate Edition not that long ago, I think it was like 5 years ago or something at this point, and you played it on the newer Xboxes where it's been boosted FPS wise and stuff like that, then no, definitely not. This is not worth full price. Maybe on a deep sale, but I don't think it's worth it if you played it recently. For people who haven't touched this game since the 360 days, then yes, of course it is going to be worth it. But that's where I get into the biggest gripe I have with this. It is the price, okay? It's trying to charge a lot of money, not quite, you know, crazy full price AAA games that they do these days, but it is still asking for a lot of money. Some people can get it as a free upgrade, but mostly people will be buying it brand new, and honestly the price is ridiculous. So that's my opinion on Gears of War Reloaded. I'm trying to be fair and objective, but honestly it is still a great game, and if you've never played it, this is the best time to play Gears of War in 2025. So now I'm just going to give a few quick points on Gears of War in 2025. The original classic, you know, doesn't matter, the Ultimate Edition, the OG Edition, the new edition, Gears of War Reloaded. What do I actually think of this game in 2025? Well, obviously, you know, it does hold up a lot better when you're playing it at 60 FPS, and it looks nice and shiny, like these two new recent editions basically do, and the Reloaded one does for everyone. But honestly, this game still holds up actually surprisingly well in 2025. You know, the tactical nature of this gameplay and playing it on a hardcore difficulty, that's where it's most fun, because it's not the type of game where you can, you know, just stand out in the middle of the open and just pop off shots. That was kind of the big revolutionary thing about Gears of War, was the cover-based mechanics, really sticking to cover, making it a tactical experience. That had never really been done before, back in the days where, you know, games were still playing with new and original ideas. So it was very refreshing, and it is still fun today. The only negative thing I would say that doesn't hold up in 2025 is because this is an old game and it was focusing on new ideas back then, they could get away with kind of repetitive gameplay. But going back and playing this game, you realize just how repetitive some of it is, because they're focusing on, you know, a few small things, like I said, like the cover-based shooting, the, you know, interesting melee combat, you know, where you can just go in and chainsaw someone completely in half. It being very gory and shocking back in the day. Now, obviously, no one bats an eyelid, but it does get repetitive, because basically what you are doing is you're going to one location, shooting a wave of enemies, going to the next location, a wave of enemies. But the enemy variation is good in Gears of War 1. The story is interesting, even though I do think some of it lacks a little bit of, you know, charisma at times. I do think that, you know, the story still holds up pretty well for the most part. The writing obviously isn't as crazy as some games today, but it is still a good story, and most of all, an interesting world and universe. A lot of people never clicked with the kind of blocky, like G.I. Joe kind of art style, but honestly, I think that's what makes Gears of War so unique and special. And for the most part, the gameplay is still great in 2025, but it just does feel dated in certain areas where it kind of lacks, that kind of. It doesn't matter so much that it's linear, because it's fine playing a linear game even today. It's actually quite refreshing, but it's just that lack of scope that the first one has that some people might find kind of disappointing today, or very, kind of stale after a while. It just depends. But playing on hardcore is my recommendation, because that is what feeds into the tactical gameplay, and makes it a lot of fun. So there you go, that is my Gears of War Reloaded 2025 review, looking at Gears of War in 2025 to find out if Gears of War Reloaded is worth it. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think about this game and just remakes and remasters in general. I always find this discussion quite interesting, what people are willing to put up with and all that stuff. And I'll be seeing you in the next video. Stay awesome and peace out.